Hey everybody, what is going on? Hexlex here. I got another Master Duel video for you, coming at you with some post-ban list Maliss. I'm going to start by showing you the new combo line that allows you to still play through Nibiru even without APOLLUSA. After that, we're going to take a look at some gameplay with our post-ban list build, and then we'll go over the deck at the end of the video. Alright, so we're going to start with normal summon Dormouse here, but to play through Nibiru, you could also open with Maliss and Underground or Gold Sarg. And this line would also still work. But if you lead with Dormouse, we're going to normal summon Dormouse, and then we're going to go ahead and activate the effect. We're going to banish Maliss White Rabbit from our deck, which of course will allow us to activate the effect in order to special summon. Now, the trap card that we're going to set with White Rabbit is actually one that I haven't really been playing up to this point, which is TB11. This card has been very optional, I think, up to this point, and is still relatively optional in Maliss, but in order to play through Nibiru, now that APOLLUSA is banned, we do need to be using TB11, so we're going to set TB11 onto the field. But we're not going to use it just yet. We're actually going to make Splash Mage first, using Dormouse and White Rabbit. Alright, from here we can activate the Splash Mage effect, revive one of our Maliss monsters. Targeting Dormouse is probably better here in case they have a Bestial monster. It's actually definitely better in case they have a Bestial monster. Okay, and then at this point, we're going to go into our Red Ransom. Alright, now at this point, we're going to activate Red Ransom's effect, but we're not getting Maliss and Underground. We're actually going to add Maliss in the Mirror. Funnily enough, this combo line actually does not use Maliss and Underground at all, but since we already have Maliss in the Mirror in hand, I'm going to not activate. Just know that normally you would activate in order to add Maliss in the Mirror here. Okay, so now that we've done that, now we're going to activate our TB11, and we're going to banish the Red Ransom that's on our field. And we're going to want to special summon the Chessy Cat from our deck. This will, of course, allow us to trigger the Red Ransom effect. We're going to activate special summon, and then we're going to banish a card. Yes, we're going to banish the March Hare from our deck, which, of course, then March Hare's effect gets to activate here, and we can add it back directly to our hand. Now, again, we already had a March Hare, but I'm just showing you how to play if you didn't open a March Hare. Okay, so at this point, we're actually going to go ahead and link into Cyber's Wicked using the Chessy Cat and the Red Ransom. And now we can activate the March Hare effect. Let's banish the Chessy Cat, because we haven't used her banish effect yet. We still haven't used Dormouse's banish effect either, though. Alright, now at this point, we get to go Chainlink 1, Cyber's Wicked. This lets you play around to Ash Blossom a little bit, although, to be fair, there are other points where, you know, they could have used the Ash Blossom already. Let's go ahead and banish the Dormouse that's in our graveyard, because we haven't used that effect yet. And then, of course, we're also going to activate the Chessy Cat effect. We're going to do that as Chainlink 2. Alright, we're going to special summon Chessy Cat. And then we can add backup Ad Ignister from deck to hand. And then, of course, we're going to activate our Dormouse effect in order to special summon. Now, I did mention that this line plays through Nibiru, and you're probably noticing that we went through a lot of summons already. However, one thing that is important to note is that if you got Nibiru to before the Wicked search the backup Ad Ignister, then we would actually still be fine, because we would still have the ability to summon out the Chessy Cat, and then we'll do the line, we'll banish the Maliss in the Mirror like we're about to do here in a moment. Otherwise, if you get Nibiru'd here, or up to this point, then you still have the backup Ad Ignister in hand and Link Spider in your extra deck to still be able to make plays. So yes, we are like playing a lot of summons here without actually playing a negate, but we're going to get to the negate here shortly. And again, even if you got nibbed up to this point, this line would always guarantee that you have some form of extension. Alright, just wanted to cover that before we keep comboing here, because I'm sure some people are probably wondering how this is still playing through nib. But we're going to activate Chessy Cat, and then we're actually going to want to banish the Maliss in the Mirror that we added earlier off the Red Ransom. So let's draw 2, and then of course we can activate Maliss in the Mirror's effect. We're actually going to want to banish the TB11 out of our graveyard, and then that lets us search up the GWC. So again, up to this point, you know, you would still have access to your Link Spider as well as GWC, even if you got nibbed before the Wicked hit the board. Alright, so we're going to set the GWC here, and then let's make Transcode Talker, which is over here. We're going to use Wicked as 2 materials, and we can just go ahead and give up. I don't think it really matters which one we use at this point. Now we'll just use March here. Alright, Transcode Talker effect allows us to summon out the Cyberus Wicked. Alright, and now we're going to go ahead and link into our Allied Code Talker at Ignister. This is something that normally in the past we've made at the end of our combo line, but here, in order to help us play through hand traps like Nibiru better mid-combo, we're going to make it mid-combo. Now, there is something very important to note, of course, which is that we do not activate the optional effect of Allied Code Talker at Ignister, because if we did, we would not be able to special summon for the rest of the turn. So we're going to say no. However, the Omni Negate effect is still live because Allied Code Talker is still pointing to Cyberus Wicked. And if you do this right for the rest of the combo line, you are actually able to keep this negate up while still getting out the rest of your board. So, alright, at this point we can activate our backup at Ignister effect in order to special summon from hand. This will of course allow us to search out the Wizard at Ignister. We'll just go ahead and discard, you know, any old card from hand. Alright, let's go Wizard at Ignister effect. You special summon itself and a Maliss monster. I'll just grab Dormouse here. Okay, now from here, we are going to need to make Link Decoder because we actually, funnily enough, still have not made this yet. Alright, and now we can make the Heart Scripter using basically everything that's not Wicked or, of course, the, you know, Allied Code Talker. Link Decoder gets to special summon itself from the graveyard. And now we're going to make White Binder using Wicked as 2 materials and then also the Heart Scripter. And we'll throw the White Binder right over here. We can activate White Binder's effect on summon, banishing exactly Heart Scripter from the graveyard because we have not summoned her from Banish yet, of course. So that's going to activate here. Alright, and then I'm just checking my notes to see if it matters where we put the Heart Scripter. Doesn't look like it does, so we'll just throw it right over here. Alright, now let's activate our GWC. We can banish our White Binder. And then we're going to want to revive the Red Ransom. We can put that right over here. Gain our life points, yes. Now we get to activate the effect of White Binder in order to revive over here. And then we get to draw a card. And finally, we're going to make our Firewall Dragon using Heart Scripter as 3 materials, as well as our Link Decoder. We can tuck that Firewall Dragon right in here in the middle of all of our other Link monsters, so that way it's pointing to 3 other monsters. So now we have set up our Omni Negate, we've got our Bounce 3. Oh, of course, we still need to activate our White Binder in order to set the GWC back from our graveyard. That way we can set up our, you know, White Rabbit for MTP for the Banish on the next turn. Now, if you wanted to, you could actually optionally activate Firewall Dragon here and get back a bunch of your extenders from graveyard to hand. Then if you're playing G-Golem Crystal Heart, you can make that with Firewall plus one of your Maliss monsters, revive Transcode, and then link it to a Heat Soul to get an extra draw. I am not going to do that because I don't really have the extra deck space for G-Golem Crystal Heart. And I personally think the Firewall Dragon bounce 3 on your opponent's field is better than, you know, adding a bunch of extenders for a follow-up turn and then getting a couple of draws off Heat Soul. I like having the more actionable, you know, disruption on field. But there you go. That is how you are able to set up your Maliss board while still playing through Nibiru and still ending on pretty much the same end board that you were before, despite making Allied Code Talker in the middle of our combo line and not using the effect. But there we have it. That is the combo line, but of course we still have some gameplay to show off, so let's go into that. Alright, we're going to start with a going second game against Exodia. Not like the combo, deep draw, Exodia win-con deck. It's just the regular Exodia incarnate, Millennium, pure, whatever you want to call it, deck. No hand traps in this opening hand, and of course Lancia is unfortunately not going to do anything against the Millennium strategy. So, no way to really stop them from going off here. Thankfully, this board doesn't end on a ton of disruption. It ends on a spell trap negate and a board wipe, pretty much. Looks like they opened multiple Exodia limbs as well. Always a drawback of having to play this deck, unfortunately, is that you have to play the Exodia limbs. Yeah, they're going to set one from hand. Exodia Incarnate sets the Exod Fires of Rage, so if we can push through a spell trap negate and a board wipe, we should be good. Drawing Magnum Hut for turn. I'm going to lead with Allure of Darkness. They're going to chain Maxi, so we're going to have to play through that as well. Because we don't have Ash Blossom or our one call by or cross out or anything. Thankfully, Allure peels a couple of Maliss monsters off the top. Pretty lucky, although to be fair, we also didn't really draw Maliss cards up to that point anyway, or monsters at least. And then of course we're leading with the Allure of Darkness rather than Maliss and Underground, because I want to bait out the Spell Trap negate. Now we're going to use the second Allure, and that finds us Wizard at Ignister, which is pretty cool to have that as a backup target. Not really a backup, actually we're going to use that here. We're going to still use Maliss and Underground as a backup play. Now at this point, I'm just going to try to go for Heartscriptor access code to try to give them as few draws as possible while setting up my OTK. But I know they still have the Exod Fires of Rage, so what I'm going to do here is Chainlink 1 Link Decoder, and then I'm going to chain Heartscriptor effect here to try to banish the Unstoppable Exodia. Because I know that's going to force them to flip up their Exod Fires of Rage, which is now Chainlink 3. But this means that Link Decoder now will not get destroyed by the Exod Fires of Rage. That's why I specifically chained my Heartscriptor effect on the same Chainlink as Link Decoder. I can go Chainlink 4 GWC to banish the Heartscriptor. So now, that way we can bait out the Exod, Spell Trap negate, although to be fair, I was going to get banished anyway. But more importantly, we banished the Heartscriptor, which will now come back on a different Chainlink. So we were able to get rid of the Spell Trap negate as well as the board wipe while still maintaining our Heartscriptor as well as the Link Decoder. And I realized at this point, my opponent paid 2,000 in order to get their combo going. So I don't actually even need to try to go into access code here. I'm just going to tribute my Link Decoder for the Magnum Hut. Now Wizard at Ignister Graveyard effect actually turns the Millennium Shield to attack mode. As long as this face down card isn't Mirror Force or something, we actually just swing in for lethal here. Which of course it's not, because nobody plays Mirror Force. Well, not nobody, but pretty much nobody. To be fair, if there was a deck out there that was going to be on a Mirror Force card, it'd be more likely to be one like this than, a regular combo deck, but I decided to just go for it, because I figured it'd make for a good replay for the video, if I got to swing it for lethal that way. I will admit that occasionally, sometimes I make slightly suboptimal plays to try to get some good replays in, but this was still a pretty solid game overall. Getting to push through Maxi and our opponent's negates / destructions in order to secure the lethal line. But yeah, that's far from the only game we've got. Let's go into the next one here. Alright, here's a going first game against Fiendsmith Orcust. But even though we're going first, we're not going to get to do a ton here, because spoiler alert, opponent is going to drop a Lancia on us. Thankfully, we did open the backup at Ignister, so we are good to go even though they hit us with the Lancia. Not surprised to see Orcust playing at least one Lancia as a crossout target, as well as, of course, just being a great hand trap in this meta. So I'm going to set the MTP off the White Rabbit, because I already have GWC in hand, plus I know I can make a Red Ransom with what I have in hand. Now we're going to go for the backup at Ignister effect, but they are going to hit us with the Ash Blossom. Yeah, if we didn't get Ash Blossomed here, we could have actually ended on the Allied Code Talker for another negate as well, but that's fine. We can just go into Splash Mage anyway. Splash Mage F will revive the White Rabbit in our graveyard, and then now we can link into that Red Ransom. And even though we can't really combo any further from here, Red Ransom can still add Maliss in the mirror, so I'm still ending on going into my opponent's 4-card hand, a negate, a banish, another negate because I have Imperm, and then another banish because I have Magnum Hut. So 4 disruptions going into their 4-card hand. For getting Lancet is still really, really good. Alright, they're going to go straight into battle phase and then summon a Magnum Hut, because they know I have the Maliss and the Mirror face down, so they're trying to get me to, you know, either activate it or battle over the Red Ransom so it won't be live. But I actually have MTP to banish the Magnum Hut here. They're going to follow up with a normal summon Fabled Lurie to pivot into their Fiendsmith engine. And I'm not concerned about that at all, just because I have the Magnum Hut in hand. I'm not even going to negate the Lacrimo, even with Imperm. I'm going to let them dump Engraver and activate the effect, and then I'm going to chain Magnum Hut. That way, they can't dump an Engraver later in the turn or do something else. Plus, we still have Imperm and Maliss in the mirror to stop whatever their follow-up in hand is. Even if they went like Foolish Burial, send Harp Horror, you know, we would still be able to stop all that stuff. But yeah. There we go. There is that duel against Fiendsmith Orcust there. Got one more going second game to finish off with. And this last going second game is going to be against Ryzeal. But of course, the ban list isn't effective yet, so my opponent is still on the max number of copies. So me testing out a new ban list deck, I'm on a little bit of a disadvantage here, but it's fine. We opened Max C, so we should be good. And even though they're on 3 Sword Ryzeal and 2X pre-ban list, they still were not able to find plays and bricked. Now, this was really unlucky for me here. As you might have seen, we top decked the second Maxi. As I go normal summon White Rabbit, my opponent is going to chain a Maxi, which Crossout as a knitter would be fine against if I didn't just draw my second Maxi. So I don't get to use Crossout here, which sucks. That really sucks. But at least they didn't use Maxi against an effect that actually special summons, which I think given that their hand was a brick, they definitely should have waited for me to actually special summon, right? That would have given them a draw and another chance to find plays here. But since I know that they don't have any live plays in hand, I'm just going to battle, set the Crossout, and then pass. Because I have Maxi and Crossout going into their, you know, brick hand. They're going to normal summon Node Ryzeal, battle over White Rabbit, set another card, and then pass back over to me. Which, again, makes me very glad I didn't try to play through the Maxi there. Going to normal summon another White Rabbit. They're going to use Solemn Judgment on it, which was very surprising, but also I'm totally fine with that. They should know that I have MTP face down because I set it off the first White Rabbit, so now I can just add March Hare. We're going to go March Hare F. They're going to chain Called by the Grave on White Rabbit, but I'm going to chain Crossout Designator, and then that's when they concede. So only one Called by in the deck, but it's still in there to use as a Crossout target. I wanted to show this game as well as the first one to kind of show 2 examples of what I would versus would not play into a Maxi, right? Against a deck like Exodia, which I know might top deck in the Nibiru, but otherwise won't have anything else threatening off the Maxi. You know, I'm definitely fine playing into it. Plus, I had an actionable game plan that would lead me, you know, to lethal in a few amount of special summons. With this game, however, I knew my opponent didn't have any live plays because they just went set 1 pass, and I knew that in order to be able to find lethal, I'd have to give them a ton of draws. Likely they would find a hand trap. They could be on Lancet, I don't know, as well as Nibiru and stuff like that. And yeah, again, I knew they didn't have any live plays, so I could play it much more safely there. Sometimes I get asked whether it's good to wait or push through a Maxi on your turn 2. And I really do think it always is just situationally based on what your opponent's playing, based on what they did turn 1, based on what your hand looks like, so on and so forth. But anyway, let me show you the post-ban list build here, and then we'll finish off the video. Okay, so here is my post-ban list build for Maliss. Again, you know, the ban list is not in effect yet, but as you can see, there's no APOLLUSA in my extra deck. We got the 2 Droll Mockbirds, and, or is it 1 Chessy Cat, as well as 1 Call By. So the deck is obviously still very strong. It has a lot of plays in general, but it also still has plays through Nibiru. One thing you probably noticed though in that combo line I showed at the beginning is that while you do play through Nibiru, you are susceptible to a lot of other hand traps, right? Ash Blossom, even Droll and Lockbird is like not horrible against that line in particular. Particularly because you go Red Ransom at Maliss in the Mirror, and then that line uses Chessy Cat draws in order to banish Maliss in the Mirror to search GWC. So Droll would, in theory, cut you off from GWC a lot of the time there. So that's just a reality of playing Maliss. you know, after the ban list, which I think is a sign that the ban list did its job, right? Because before, Maliss could just kind of play through everything. Droll and Ash Blossom and Nib just didn't care about it at all. But now you kind of have to pick your poison. You could play through Ash Blossom and Droll a little better, but those lines are all going to be susceptible to Nibiru. This line, which plays through Nibiru, is still going to be susceptible to other hand traps. And there's always the looming threat of Lancia, which people are still going to be playing even if they don't expect a ton of Maliss, because they're still going to expect some Maliss, and Orcust is also still out there. So I think it's really important to kind of acknowledge that, like, while Maliss is still good, it definitely now, rather, has a bit more of a time playing through hand traps. So yeah, this is my build here. I almost played Signet Mining, but I decided not to. I decided to play Triple Tack as kind of a pseudo replacement for Called By. Of course, it doesn't do the same effect, but as some kind of anti-hand trap counterplay. I wouldn't necessarily do this for every single deck, but for a lot of decks, if you're looking for just a one-form replacement for Called By, you could consider another copy of Triple Tactics Talent. Playing a couple copies of Allure to help with extension. I like this a lot better than Signet Mining. It's like Signet Mining is, yeah, it always gets you like Dormouse or another starter, but it's really weak to Ash Blossom. That discard for a Rhoda effect is, you know, often very susceptible to just getting hand trapped, and is also pretty weak against Droll as well. So I like Allure a little bit better just because it's a little bit more flexible. It doesn't require the discard up front, and of course it banishes, which can act as an extender for your plays. Let's see, anything else to say about the build here? I kind of wanted to play 3 Imperm to have more trap cards for Impulse, but I decided that it was still important to play both 1 Fuelos and 1 Lancia as crossout targets, and also these are just really solid hand traps overall. Droll is still pretty good in the deck, so I would definitely main your 2 copies. And as far as the extra deck goes, Heat Soul is really not necessary at all. You could definitely take this out for Lizardos if you like that. I just never summon Lizardos when playing Maliss, so I decided to try the Heat Soul out instead. But obviously there's like any number of things you could play as far as like Cyberse options, but I think Link Spider is critically important to have, as it does of course allow you to play through Nibiru a lot more often than if you didn't have it. But yeah, there we go. That's gonna go ahead and do it for this video. Thank you so very much for watching, and let us now move on to the outro. Hey everybody, Hexlex here. Thank you so very much for watching all the way to the very end of the video, which by the way is one of the best ways to support the channel. Speaking of supporting the channel, take a look at the names on screen. These are folks who have been so generous as to either join as a YouTube member or subscribe over on patreon.com/Hexlex to support. There's also perks for doing so. If you would like to see YouTube videos early, as well as some exclusive videos that get uploaded to YouTube, but for one reason or another I decide not to publish, definitely go ahead and hit that join button to see content early, as well as some exclusive content. If you're looking for more exclusive content, over on patreon.com, I upload exclusive videos that are not posted on YouTube just about every single day. Whether you choose to subscribe over on Patreon, join as a YouTube member, or simply continue to watch, your support is greatly appreciated. Thank you so very much. But for now, this is Hexlex. I am signing out, and I hope that you have a fantastic day.